Whether you love kids or you hate them, we were all kids once in our lives. And even in our adult lives, we still carry that kid version of us today. And it's called inner child.
Hey, I'm Mariah, and I'm a filmmaker, and an ADHDer, and a writer, and a woman who deals with anxiety, and a photographer, and, okay, you get the picture. Hey, I'm Mariah. Did I say that already? And I'm a storyteller who cares a whole lot about mental health. A lot of times, we often separate storytelling and mental health from each other. Honestly, we tend to separate mental health from everything. But I find these two to go hand in hand. When you're telling a story, that point is to connect with your audience. On a deeper level, check this out. Connect with their mind. Storytelling is everything. Movies, music, video games, art, all of it. And mental health has a lot to offer too. Depression, autism, PTSD, and so on. I'm on a mission to understand and learn more about both storytelling and mental health. Whether it's digging deep into mental health disorders, checking out the psychology of characters from all over, dissecting the power of music on our emotions, hearing the personal stories of creatives, my goal is for us to be more seen, heard, understood, and learn who we are. Welcome to my podcast, Everything Storytelling, plus Mental Health. This is your host, Mariah Nasir, and let's dive right into it. Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of the podcast. It's a win because I made it to episode 2, so yay! I really want to thank everyone so far who took the time to listen to my insanely long first podcast episode and supporting me going on this new journey. And again, it's not really easy to pop up out of bed, grab a microphone, and start talking to you guys. So I just want to thank you again. You guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So for today's episode, we are going all in on the inner child. And it's called From Imagination to Impact, Embracing Your Inner Child for Personal Growth and Creative Inspiration. And this time I have a special guest with me, and her name is Rachel Ann. Rachel Ann is a Christian holistic life coach specializing in supporting Christian women of color to show up as their authentic selves without fear or judgment, and helping them understand how the past impacts the present and potentially the future. Her journey began in counseling, advising, coaching, and mentoring back in 2014. As a previous psychotherapist and educator, and as someone with a few mental health diagnoses such as cPTSD, OCD, anxiety, and depression, she uses her professional, academic, and life experience to develop mindset and wellness programs, equipping clients with tools for self-sufficiency, healthy coping mechanisms, and mindfulness techniques to develop healthy views of build confidence, and operate in the fullness of who they're called to be. She lives in New York City with her husband and 6 plant babies. When she's not coaching, you can find her sipping boba, dancing to Afrobeats, which I love, or volunteering at her church. So, yay! I am so glad to introduce you on here. And the first thing I just got to ask is, what is your favorite type of bubble?
That's a really good question. I am so happy to be here. Thank you, Mariah, for asking me to be a part of this wonderful podcast that I'm so excited is happening and it's here. My favorite type of boba. Oh, girl, that is a question. Okay, so it depends on the time of year. I'll say that. So when it is winter time, I tend to like ones that are more milkier. So I tend to like a lavender black tea with some oat milk, or there's this rose green tea with oat milk that I really like. During the warmer months, like right now, I've been going for like a fruitier tea. So like a mango green tea, a passion fruit green tea. Those are my favorite. But yeah, that's
That
me and
sounds really
boba.
good. No, that sounds really
Yes.
good. Yours sounds very healthy. My favorite ones are basically the brown sugar and vanilla. And there's this one near my place. They have the cookie crumb bubble tea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are yummy. Those are
Mine are
yummy.
not healthier, or mine are not healthy.
Also
compared to yours.
true. Also true.
I just like to begin every episode with just like a mental health check-in before we go into like today's topic. So I will
Yeah.
start out. For me,
I like to go for like from a scale from 1 to 10, by the way. And for me,
Mm.
I feel like it would range from a 3 to an 8 today, just because it's been an emotional roller coaster and stuff like that. You know,
Mm.
I feel like my inner child kind of was popping up today. I think it's been popping
Mm.
up the last few days. So it's a good thing we're talking about this today. So, yeah, I just been feeling a little bit down. I think I just been disappointed in some things.
Mm.
So, but we will get into that. And then,
Yeah.
but that's an 8 because, I'm recording this episode. It's finally the end of the day. I'm at home. I have this new app and it's called Finch. And I found it from
Ooh.
one of my Facebook groups.
Mm.
Like it's one of our ADHD Facebook groups. And it's really cool to kind of like gamify, like pretty much daily task. So I
Ooh.
was just doing it this past weekend, and like I had a bunch of tasks like cleaning the dishes, cleaning the litter box, vacuuming, and I had like this little checklist. I'm supposed to take care of this little animal. It's a little bird.
Oh,
And
how
when I check
cute.
off each task, I take care of the little birdie. So I'm like, I gotta take care of this little birdie. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking care of this little birdie, but I'm
Oh my
actually taking care of
gosh.
myself as well. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
a
I
win.
love that. It reminds me of, I don't know, Mariah, if you, I'm 33, y'all. So I might be aging myself here. So, Mariah, I don't know if you've heard of this. It's a Tamagotchi or like Neopets. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's basically like Tamagotchis are it's on a keychain and it's like a circle and it's like a little computer tech gadget, and you have like a little animal and you have to take care of it on the screen. You have to pick up its poop, you have to like do all of these things to care for it, and you
Mhm.
just carry it around. It's like on your keychain and you just push the buttons and you play games with your Tamagotchi pet, and it's so cute, and that's what it reminds me of.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I heard of that. I think that was something I wanted as a kid. I remember seeing that on commercials or something similar to that. So when you
Yeah.
said that though, it's another like it's actually a video game and it sounds very similar, but it's called Tomodachi Life. And I was
Oh.
thinking about that. It's kind of like The Sims, but in me form. So that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but
Wow. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so cool. Finch. Okay, I'll keep that in mind because for people that I know that like to gamify and also just taking care of cute birds, like, oh my gosh, like that's so sweet. Like, who doesn't want to do that?
for sure. Again, it's called Finch. Just
Finch.
like yeah, just check it out. It's really fun.
Hey, just wanted to interrupt and say how I completely forgot to add Rachel, how she is doing, and my notes are literally right in front of my face. If that's not ADHD, I don't know what is.
But
Nice.
yep. But okay, so just to get into today's episode, we're
Mm,
going to talk about what is inner child, what is the importance of it, how can we embrace it for personal growth, and then how can we embrace it for our creative inspiration. So
Mm.
just to start off, I'm just gonna say, I feel like the inner child is just very underrated. Just a very
Mm.
underrated topic to begin with, but pretty much everything I talk about on this podcast is underrated because we're talking about also mental health. So mental health is just
Yep.
not something that's talked about a lot in general, but for
Yeah.
sure, inner child, like it's just really something you don't hear about. I feel like this is something I just recently found out about. So, I want to just
Yeah.
ask you, what exactly is inner child?
Yeah, that's a great question. Inner child, if for those of you that have been in therapy for a while, essentially it's like generational trauma breaking and it's addressing your childhood wounds and your childhood trauma, essentially what it is. But we call it inner child because it allows us to remember and conceptualize all of the experiences and the memories that we have as a younger child and how those things really impact us either positively or negatively. And inner child healing allows that conceptualization of all of those memories to be housed in an inner child. So it's not like you're not like talking to yourself. There's not like a literal inner child that is existing within you. It's basically a concept or a mindset to help you realize, like, oh, what's inside of me are all of these memories and these traumas, and how they're negatively impacting me or positively impacting me, and how it's showing up now. It's easier for us to understand that when we think about our inner child, and we're like, that's where all of the memories are housed. And so when I, for example, when I am having a conversation with my partner and I am responding in a way that is higher or weird than what that conversation entails. Like if I escalate it to an argument, if I'm taking it personal, then that's a moment where my inner child has been activated. So I'm responding from a place of trauma. I'm responding from a place of my inner child and that memory, as opposed to 33-year-old Rachel that actually wants to have this conversation in a mature way. So inner child is the compilation of all of those memories and how it shows up in our everyday life and how we interact with people and how we're in different contexts and spaces.
That's really interesting. I like how you brought up your example because again, like going back to how I was feeling like this past weekend, I definitely felt it present. Like I've been
Mm,
disappointed in a few things. I've been honestly just anxious in general, this
mhm,
podcast included, because this is something outside of my comfort zone.
mm,
And generally, I guess when I was a kid, I really didn't want to like I guess I was a quiet kid, so I didn't
mm,
really want to express myself in front of everyone. So I definitely felt my inner child was telling me like, I don't know, Mariah, we need to just like, hold off for a moment, just because it was scared. And I felt like when I was like doing some reflecting, I felt like there's this word that just jumped up out of me. It's like, okay, I'm feeling anxious, but why am I feeling anxious? And this
mm,
word, rejection, like I don't want
mm,
to feel rejected.
mm.
And it's just like, whoa, okay, that that makes sense. And that I think it's just something that evolves around a lot of things in general,
Mm,
in my daily life. And um being a kid, it was something I dealt with a lot.
yeah.
It's like I was an outcast a lot
Mm,
in school and in college. As a Black woman who is very nerdy, who is a Christian, and we don't fit in. There's a lot of categories where you generally don't think about for
right.
someone like me. So it was hard to fit in
Yeah.
general. So rejection was definitely like a strong feeling the
Mm.
past few days. So
Oh,
I
that's
definitely
real.
feel that. Definitely feel that.
Yeah, that's real, Mariah. I feel like when our inner child shows up, our inner child shows up to protect us. A lot of the negative feelings that we experience, whether it's anxiety, depression, rejection, fear, disappointment, those things typically happen as a way to protect us. So instead of being like, okay, I'm going to put myself out there with this podcast, right? Anxiety comes in and is like, no, we should not do this because if we do this, it's going to be really, really bad. And I'm here to protect you so that you don't get rejected. Right. And so it means well, but what we do, especially as we are, adults and we have access to mental health resources, we have more life experiences, we have more conversations with our community. What we're able to do is actually have a conversation with our inner child. And so instead of letting anxiety, depression, whatever it is, win your thoughts, what happens is you engage it and you say, okay, like I hear you, little, in this case, Mariah, I hear you, little Mariah. You don't want us to be rejected. That's so real, girl. You can trust me, adult Mariah, that I am going to make sure that we are not rejected. But also, if we are rejected, you can trust me that I will take care of you and that I will be able to manage the situation in a way that it is healthy. So we don't need to be afraid because I will protect you. If the worst case scenario happens and we get rejected, I will be able to handle it. And so we will be okay. Because your inner child needs to hear that it's okay, that your inner child does not need to show up and is like ready to fight, ready to be anxious, ready to shut down a new idea because it's trying to protect you based on the history that you have, right? So it's like, hey, like I know how this goes, but then adult, you can come in and befriend your inner child and be like, actually, I hear you. And what you're saying is so valid, but I want you to know that it's different this time. It is not the same of when we were a child and I asked my parent, my authority figure, some type of trusted adult to stand up for me and they didn't stand up for me, right? It's not like that. You can trust me. I'm somebody who's trustworthy. And essentially that's what the inner child healing work is you developing the confidence and trust in yourself and having a sense of congruence so that who you are authentically on the inside is expressed and comes out on the outside. And so that's a really beautiful and common example, Mariah. Like rejection, anxiety, those are immediate cues for our inner child to be like, hi, I'm here and we are going to shut this down. That's very real.
Yeah, is anxiety like the same thing as inner child, or is it like a part, or like a specific area of the inner child? Like, do
Yeah.
you mind explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, your inner child can feel multiple feelings. So, your inner child can be like, hi, in this moment, in this work meeting, I'm feeling really anxious because this person is saying something that's ridiculous and I want to correct them, but I don't know how safe this environment is, right? So, now I'm going to feel anxious. Or with the podcast, it's like, okay, Mariah wants to do this podcast, but what if we're rejected and we can't handle it? So, I must warn her that this is something that can happen so that we don't do this, right? So your inner child will express and will show up in a variety of ways, whether it's feeling anxious, depressed, whether it's a reaction that is inappropriate to the situation. So for example, like I mentioned with that example, if I'm having a conversation with my husband, and I'm wiling out, then that's really inner child Rachel showing up as opposed to adult Rachel who is trying to have this conversation. So your inner child is capable of expressing all of those emotions, but it's also a child, right? Remember, as a child, you probably were not the most mental health savvy person because you are a child. And so what is happening is your inner child is taking in all of the information and is creating associations and meanings to it. Most of the time, it's creating incorrect meaning. And especially right now. And so that's when you as an adult can say, oh, I see what's happening here. Because of this memory that we have of my mom not standing up for me, I now don't trust people when they say that they're going to stand up for me or that they actually will be there for me and help me move or something like that. So that's why I feel overwhelmed and I'm overworking myself and I'm hyper independent because I can't trust people from that memory. So that's how it's showing up. And what you do is you have a conversation and be like, actually, that experience, that memory of your mom not showing up is totally real. But my friend Patricia is totally different. So when she says she's going to show up to help me move, she's going to show up and she's going to help me move. She is not my mom. She is not that person who, broke my trust in adult figures and stuff like that. And so having that conversation with yourself, not shaming your inner child, not yelling at your inner child, but befriending and being like, okay, where is this coming from? Because it's coming from somewhere. And the more you repress your inner child, the louder they will scream. And it is usually at the most inconvenient times that they will scream the absolute loudest, and there will usually be some consequences that you don't want to deal with. You'll be at a work meeting chilling, and all of a sudden you have an ulcer for literally no reason. And now you need to leave your work meeting and go home and go to urgent care and figure out what to do about this ulcer because we have not been listening to the inner child. We haven't been listening to the headaches. We haven't been journaling. We haven't been talking to our support system, to our life coaches, our mentors, our therapists, whoever it is. And so the emotions will go somewhere. They do not disappear. As powerful as your repression skills are, they will not disappear.
I think it's funny how you mentioned that. Just because as you were talking, I was literally thinking about how strong my inner child is. Sometimes I honestly feel stronger than my adult self, to be honest. Because
Mm,
generally, when you think about a kid versus an adult, obviously, like the adult is generally stronger than the child.
mm,
But when we're talking about on a mental aspect here, it's like totally different.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just like my thoughts about that.
Yeah, that's a powerful observation. What that tells me is that your inner child, your childhood, right? Literally, we'll go non-conceptual real quick. So you have multiple memories in your childhood of really strong emotions that have not been processed and then they're just swimming around. And so when your inner child, when little Mariah shows up, she's like, yo, I am here. I am loud and I am proud, girl. Loud and proud. And sometimes that's great because it can give you energy to advocate and show up for yourself. And then other times it's like, girl, we don't need to pop off on our neighbor. That is not what we needed to do. And so I think a lot of people, as they start to go through inner child healing, would find similar experiences as the one that you just shared, which is my inner child is strong and is out here and is really bold and letting me know that they're here.
For sure, for sure. What are some ways as well to have a relationship with our inner child?
That is a really good question. So it's weird, y'all. I'm gonna just be totally honest. It is weird to sit there and be like, wow, I'm gonna think about all of my emotions and memories and experiences from childhood that were potentially traumatic and think about them in the conception of baby me. And I'm gonna like talk to baby me, right? That seems really weird. And so the first thing we do is acknowledge that it's weird and be like, I have never taken such a deep dive into this aspect of myself before. So there's going to be things that are uncomfortable. I may be tempted to repress more. I may be tempted to not dive deeper. I may cry and I'm like, oh, I don't want to cry. So I may just stop. And so just know that those things are possible. And instead of being afraid, instead we befriend. So befriending fear, befriending your tears, right? I think that's a really powerful next step is saying, okay, I'm going to have compassionate curiosity as I explore what inner child me has to say. First step, just start from there. And then once you start from there, your inner child is going to work on trusting you. And this is no offense to you, but your inner child has learned to not trust you or literally anybody else. That's why it's here and it's activated. And so what you can do is talk to yourself, talking to your inner child, like, hey, how are we feeling today? Wow, man, we are at this meeting and I'm really triggered by this one colleague because he's reminding me of this really condescending conversation I had with my dad when I was younger. Right? We are triggered. Okay, well, in this moment, I want you to know, little Rachel, that that man is not your dad and you do not have to engage with him. This man does not actually mean anything to you, and you do not have to be in charge of his emotions. You do not have to hold space for wondering and being anxious about this man. And just talking to your inner child, talking to yourself about what is happening behind that trigger. And as you're saying those things to yourself, to your inner child will start to feel soothed. They'll be like, oh, wow, I'm not responsible for other people's behaviors in a way that's weird. Wow, this is not my dad. So I don't have to respond to this person like he's my dad. And as you do that more and more and more, which is there's more triggers and you respond to the triggers and you talk to yourself through the triggers, that is what builds the trust between you and your inner child. And so the more that we do that, the more you trust yourself and the more your inner child won't have to scream and beg for attention because it trusts you to say, oh, okay, adult Mariah's got it. We've been in this situation a few times before. She has shown me that she will protect me and that she will make wise decisions for me. So I don't need to have a temper tantrum with my partner. I don't need to like flip out on my neighbor or whatever it is. So that's like what it looks like. If I were to say step by step, that is the step by step process for that. I will say this, and I promise I'll stop talking. There are books on this which are really, really helpful, but I do strongly recommend doing this work with a practitioner, whether that is a therapist and that's somebody who's familiar with inner child healing, whether that's with a life coach. But I would, if you want to go the life coach route, just ask them specifically if they have experience in this, because life coaching is great. I love life coaching, but it is not a field that is regulated. Whereas therapy, mental health services, different types of medical services are regulated. So there are things that they have to by law know. Life coaches do not have to know inner child healing. So you can ask them about that, their experiences with that, and also the people in your life. Because like you said, Mariah, it's kind of being spoken about, but there's some shade about what it means. It's all over social media, but social media is great. But what social media does, and it's not so great, is it confuses and even dilutes or changes the definitions of things, right? Narcissism is not what Instagram tells us it is. It is much deeper than that. Just because somebody lies to you does not mean that they're a narcissist. People can be liars and not narcissists, right? So I would encourage you to do some research on your own about this. And then when you do want to seek that professional support, which I definitely think that you should, do not do this by yourself. Please do this with a trained professional, because stuff comes up. Like, we're talking about trauma. We're talking about these core memories that have just been sitting there, and now we're opening the door to all your repressed emotions. It's not a fun time, but it's a time that we need to have, and you deserve support in doing that. So now I'm off my soapbox.
No, that was that. I mean, that was really informative what you just shared. Is it something that's common around, like, for those who have PTSD in general, or just any like trauma based, I guess? I know you kind of already mentioned
Yes.
it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you are somebody who has a history of trauma, the likelihood that you need to have some type of inner childhood healing is very high. If you are somebody that has a mental health diagnosis, usually the history or the core or the trigger of that mental health diagnosis usually has to do with some childhood experience, in addition to the chemicals in our brain, right? So we think about the brains of people who have depression versus the brains of people who do not have depression. Part of the reason why we have depression is, yes, potentially because of trauma and really horrible life circumstances, and also the chemicals in your brain. The jury is still out if it's, does the chemicals in your brain cause a depression, or is it the experiences that you had as a child causes a depression, and then that is what changes the chemicals. The science world is still figuring out which one comes first. But what we do know from a research perspective is these diagnoses, a lot of mood disorders, a lot of personality disorders, ADHD, and a lot of disorders that impact the way that you think and feel and operate, typically have a root in childhood, and typically it's something unpleasant. So I would say it's trauma, but I'm not going to say 100% because we always have outliers here in the world of science.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Also, I don't know if I skipped this question or not, but how is our inner child often betrayed in our daily lives? Did I ask you that?
You didn't. And that's a really good question to ask, because I think it's important to know when your inner child is showing up. Because when you know your inner child is showing up, you can be like, oh, I don't have to continue popping off on somebody because that's inner child that wants to pop off. What I can do is take a moment to breathe, practice a coping mechanism for stress relief, have a nice conversation with inner child, and then respond in adult version, or you of today, or the you that you authentically would want to respond in that situation in. So I think that's a really good question to ask. Some typical ways our inner child shows up, there's some unpleasant ways. Those ways would be like if you are feeling levels of anxiety, depression, rejection, any type of emotion that is causing you distress. That's what I'll say. If you're experiencing a thought pattern or an emotion that is causing you distress, then that is likely that your inner child is popping up. Also, on the other hand, your inner child also pops up in positive ways. And so, something with inner child healing is you giving yourself the experiences you've always wanted as a child. And so, some of it is very loving, like standing up for yourself, advocating for yourself, protecting yourself, giving yourself the space to cry and process because your parents never did that. And then other ones are like going to Disney World and just having so much fun. Some of it is coloring or engaging a lot of creative things, drawing, painting. The creative field is, oh my gosh, there are probably so many people who have done great inner child healing work because they are creatives. And so that's a more positive one, where it's not so much of, your inner child is being activated because you're about to be rejected or you're scared to be rejected. It's more so there's a sense of joy that you may not have had experience as a child. And so you are doing things to bring your inner child joy. And they're typically the creative things, and they're also things that we would associate with children. So watching cartoons, watching childhood favorites. Like for me, for example, there are TV shows that I will watch over and over again because I have such positive memories of what was happening in my life at that time. And so watching the show, yes, I enjoy the show. It's very funny, it makes me smile, but there's so many positive memories that I have of when I first watched this show. And so it's also a way to soothe in that way. So those are some ways it can show up, but essentially any time where you are having an emotional reaction that is different than what you actually want it to be, typically your inner child is showing up in some way in that way.
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned the TV shows because I was actually thinking about that. I feel like a lot of times, especially after a long day of work, I feel like my inner child is just popping up. It's like, let's go watch some SpongeBob. And I'm not talking about like the ones that are out now. I'm talking about the ones that I grew up with, from season 1 to season 3. Like that was the prime time of
Yes.
SpongeBob. And oh man,
Yes.
it always puts me in a good mood. Just not SpongeBob, but just like all the like cartoons and everything that I grew up with. It just puts me in a good mood. And now it's even funny now because back when I was living in the 2010s, I was like, oh man, I miss the 2000s. But now it's the 2020s, and now I'm like, okay, I miss the 2000s and I miss the 2010s. They're both nostalgic
Yeah.
now. So now I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
wow, my inner child is now popping up now for like the 2010 show, especially the shows that came out like early 2010 to like 2013. Oh man.
Yeah.
That was a cool time. So,
Yes,
was there like a
absolutely.
was there like a specific favorite cartoon show that you always like to watch?
I really like Powerpuff Girls. I was a Bubbles fan. She was just so freaking cute. And then I also really liked Hey Arnold. I also like Rugrats, like so. I wasn't like, "Oh, she's amazing," but I was like, okay, if it's on TV, I'll watch it. Those ones I really, really liked. And then I also enjoy, it's not a cartoon, but I also enjoy, and it's part of like inner child healing for me, the Harry Potter books and the movies. That was an integral part of, I would say, Rachel, probably like late elementary school and then middle school and high school version of Rachel, who was really going through it. Harry Potter was like always there for me. So I would say that those are the ones that come to my mind right now.
That's cool. I wish I got into Harry Potter when I was a kid. Just like
Mm,
I never really got into it. I don't think like I really thought about it that much because I was all
mm,
into like my cartoons, specifically like SpongeBob and all of them. But
mm.
yeah, I definitely want to like get more into Harry Potter. So you just reminded me that I need to put that on my watch list. I watched the first
Yeah.
film, but that's about it. So I know
Yeah.
for anybody hearing this right now.
Yeah, I will say this, the first film and the second film, there's important information you need to know for the rest of the
Mhm.
films, but they are the least exciting. It really gets poppin' a movie number 3, Chamber of
Hmm.
Secrets. Oh my goodness gracious. So I highly recommend it. And I think you would enjoy it because there's a lot of creative arts. Oh my gosh, the things that they have done. And it's very sci-fi. There's also like such a deeper meaning to it. And like as a Christian, I feel like there's a lot of parallels that I see in that movie to how like the battle of like good versus evil. And I know Christians be thinking lots of things about Harry Potter. I understand it. If you're convicted, don't watch it. But as someone who's not convicted and as somebody who doesn't think, the magic there is real, I think it is sci-fi, I think it's fantasy, and I think it's done really well. I feel fine watching it. It doesn't disturb my soul in any way. There's just so many parallels there. So I have a hunch you really like it, but you have
Yeah,
enough on
I
your watch list already.
I'm definitely it's on my watch list. I need to you just again you remind me I need to go watch that. But yes, onward to the next question. How do other neurological and psychological factors affect our inner child? And then like what are some like biological and external factors that can affect this?
That's a great question. So how do I say this nicely? If you are a human being in 2024, which is when we're recording this podcast, there is a very good chance that you have a mental health diagnosis. The reason why I say that is because y'all, the world that we live in is absolute trifling. Okay. And so I'm gonna just keep it real. Um, And so even if you have the best coping mechanisms, even if you are the richest person on planet Earth and you are so far away, even if you are like somebody who has all of the privilege in the world, that's what I'll say, you are still likely going to be affected what is happening in the world. And what is happening in the world, it kind of sucks, not gonna lie. So just by being a human being that's living in this world where trauma is happening literally every single day, we are witnessing it. And so we have vicarious trauma, which means we are experiencing trauma just through witnessing or observing those events, even though those events are not happening to us. And there's a lot of struggle that we have, whether it's to make sure we're paying our bills, finding community, having healthy relationships, rebuilding relationships that maybe are not so hot anymore. So I say all that to say, in some ways, life is really difficult. And when there's difficulty, there's usually a fun mental health diagnosis. And so that's okay. It's okay if you have a mental health diagnosis. Everything will probably be all right as you go through the healing process. So that's one aspect of it. Other aspects, the physiological, I think that's something you asked me, the biological. So, and that is attached to our inner child. So things that are bodily sensations that we associate with some of the heavily distressed emotions that we have. What I mean by that, for example, let's say I'll use myself as an example because this actually happened recently. I was making a phone call to my insurance company because there's this medical doctor who was just trying to charge me $1 million. And I'm like, absolutely not. And I was so angry. I was anxious. I had knots in my stomach. Inner child Rachel was definitely activated because I have a history of advocates not advocating for me. And I have a history of experiencing injustice. So I was like, great, I'm definitely going to lose. This insurance person is not going to listen to me. This is a waste of my time. Oh, and I have to pay this stupid bill, right? So there's a lot that was happening. And so there were physical sensations, right? So the knots were in my stomach really heavy. I felt really jittery as if I had way too much coffee. I kind of felt like jello. In my throat gets really tight when I get really anxious because I don't want to speak. And so my throat is like, cool, you don't want to speak? I'm going to make it harder for you to speak. But I have to speak because I'm on the phone. I have to advocate for myself. Those are bodily sensations that I typically get when I'm feeling a high level of anxiety. And I was feeling a high level of anxiety because my inner child was triggered because I have a history of not being cared for well in certain ways. And so now I have to advocate for myself in that way. So there's a bodily sensations that are like, hey, I'm sending you signals that we are not okay with this phone call, that we are scared. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be on the receiving end of another medical fraud injustice situation. Like, no, girl, we need to stop. So I'm going to send you all of these signals so that you stop. If your stomach hurts a lot, you'll stop and care for your stomach. If you are so jittery and if you have pain in your throat, you literally will not talk and you will not be comfortable. So then you will stop. And so what I had to do, literally while I was speaking to the insurance company, I was rubbing my throat. I was soothing my throat. I was rubbing my stomach. I was like, all right, stomach, we're here. We're going to work it out together. I was feeling jittery. And so I was just, I was rubbing my shoulders and my arms. And these are things to help ground me. It basically helps to remind me that actually I am safe. Grounding exercises are exercises you do to remind yourself that you are safe and that the experience that you're having is likely because of something more mental health related. And it's still very serious, but you are safe and therefore you can manage that mental health situation. So those are some of the physiological ones. Other common ones is when people bounce their knee up and down or their leg up and down really fast when they get anxious, having pain in the back of your neck, having pain in your forehead. So like headaches, migraines, those are really common ones, pain in your back. And so again, when you talk about repressed emotions, your emotions have energy to it. And what I mean by that is there's a weight to it. If you are somebody who deals with depression, then you know that depression is heavy. If you're somebody that deals with anger, you know that anger is a hot and fast and it needs to come out type of emotion. So our emotions, they activate us in certain ways and they stay in certain parts of our body until we soothe that part of our body and we alleviate that emotional tension that we are experiencing. So those are some of the physiological, biological, mental, I don't want to say side effects, but they come along with inner child healing moments. Crying. That's a common one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
tend to cry a lot.
I feel like I'm not usually like I've been practicing mindfulness, and I feel like I'm starting to be more in tune with my thoughts and my feelings, but
Mm.
mentally I still need to be more aware of like what I'm physically feeling, because
Mm.
right now I'm just like when I feeling mentally it's like the heat of the moment, you know?
Mm.
So I'm kind of thinking of more what the person is saying to me or what's happening around me than actually like feeling, the blood pressure rising, the butterflies in my tummy, things
Mm.
like that. So yeah, it was just interesting that you brought that up as well.
Yeah, mindfulness is great, girl. It is hard. So welcome to the club. It is not something that we ever learned in school. And unfortunately, we live in a world that does not encourage mindfulness.
They
Our
need,
world
oh,
encourages
sorry.
hustle. Huh?
Oh no, I was just saying that needs to be a class. They need to put it in a class.
Absolutely. Hey, maybe that's another episode you could do. This is what
Yes.
mindfulness is. Mindfulness with Mariah. There you go. But it's hard. Nobody taught us. The world doesn't support it. It's not something easily facilitated. So for those of you trying mindfulness, keep up on the journey.
Yes, mindfulness is great. Mindfulness is great. But next question is, why do you think it's so hard to hear slash understand our inner child? And why do
Whew.
you think we tend to ignore it?
Girl, girl, girl. That I know I said that's a good question to all of the questions you've asked because they're all been really good questions. This is probably the golden one. The reason why I say that is because this is really what makes it difficult for people to step into the healing and, dare I say, the life they actually want to live, which is we are afraid of what is on the other side. As human beings, we are very adaptable. We are adaptable to dysfunction, and so much so that we don't even realize that maybe one day we've gone a day without doing dishes and not being with community. And then next thing we know, it's been 3 weeks. And now we haven't done any dishes. We haven't spoken to anybody. We're very isolated. We've used up all of our vacation days at our job. And, showering has been really difficult because we do a very good job of adapting to our situations, including dysfunctional situations or unhealthy situations. And so, because we've adapted so much, we're like, well, there's no problem because I've created all of these solutions. So, instead of like just not doing the dishes for 5 days, what I've done is I have actually just put everything in a bin so I don't see it anymore. Okay, I don't have a problem and everything is fine. And since I don't have a problem and everything is fine, then I can keep moving forward in my life the way that it is. So with inner child healing, it's a really thorough, deep dive type of process, and it is grueling. And I don't say that word dramatically. I say it because it is truly grueling. We're talking about peeling back all of the layers, all of the memories, positive and negative ones, wonderful ones and traumatic ones that your subconscious has been holding on to, and it is showing up in areas of your life that some you're able to see and some you're not able to see. That does not sound like fun. That does not sound quick. And that is why people don't want to do it. We want fun and we want quick. We want microwave healing. And unfortunately, my friends, most microwave healing techniques don't actually work like that. And so I get it. We also, in addition to the fact that we are so adaptable and we've adapted to dysfunction, I think another part of it too is we are afraid of losing friends and we're afraid that our community will change. So if it's like, oh my God, what if I heal and I'm a dramatically different person and nobody wants to be around me anymore? Right? There's a fear of the unknown. It's like, oh my gosh, what if I heal and then like I actually realize that I don't want to be in this romantic relationship anymore? And then that means that I'm alone and single, and that's not something that I want. So there's a lot of fear that prevents us from doing the healing work. And something that I will say, if this is you, welcome to the club. We're all like this. But I will say two things. One, like I said before, your inner child will let you know. And usually at the most inconvenient time, it will scream and destroy the moment in order for you to listen if you continue to repress your inner child. And those consequences are usually very difficult to deal with, versus if you deal with your issues now, the consequences are more manageable. That's one thing. And then another thing, the pain and misery that we experience in our current dysfunctional, unhealthy situations is actually much higher than the pain we experience in healing. Healing is painful, but it is not as painful as staying in a life, settling in a life, and in relationships and in workspaces that are actually unhealthy for us and are literally sucking the life out of us. So those are the things that really make it difficult. And I understand it. And that's why when you work with a practitioner, you know that you are not alone in that. Your practitioner is educated, hopefully. Your practitioner is there dedicated to be in the process with you. The practitioner does not mandate that you are perfect. They do not. They sit there, they already love you just as you are, and they love you so much that they want to support you to the place where you want to be. For those of us that are Christians listening to this, it's the same approach that God has with us. God loves us so much exactly where we are, but because God loves us so much, He does not want to leave us where we are. He wants to be with us, come alongside us every step of the way into holiness, into sanctification, into being the person He has called us to be. It's the same thing with a mental health practitioner, with a life coach, shoot, with any type of medical practitioner. That's how it should be. So that's another soapbox rant. Thank you for allowing me to have that.
No, that was really good. That was really good, honestly. Um, it's just as you were talking about that, the past few months I've like been learning about myself more, and
Mm,
I have ADHD, which I talked about in my first episode, and just understanding ADHD alone made me understand myself more and made me realize a lot of things from my past, especially as a kid, that explain so much. And a lot
mm,
of funny moments came up, like, haha, yeah, that's funny, that explains a lot about me. And then a lot of hurt came up because, like,
mm,
dang, wow, that I guess a lot of times I thought there was like, something wrong with me and things like that. So
mm.
just going through some of like, the research and everything and just understanding myself more, it's just like, oh, wow,
Wow.
and as I've been doing it too, I definitely been feeling healing because I feel like I understand myself better than like I would say like
Mm,
3 months ago. I feel like I can
wow.
pinpoint I wouldn't say pinpoint exactly, but I feel like I can understand what I'm feeling more than like I would have like 3 months ago. So
I
it's
love that.
yeah. So I just like how you mentioned that. Um just in general, the healing wouldn't is not as painful as like settling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been
Mm-hmm.
settling pretty much the majority of my life until recently, and now I'm like understanding myself more. Now I'm like, okay, wow, this explains a lot about me. So yeah.
That's so powerful, Mariah. I'm so happy for you, girl.
Thank you. But yeah, the next question. So, what are some good movies where the inner child is present? And what are some other forms of media betrayal? I will have to say, as
Hmm.
you've been talking about inner child, all I've been thinking about was Inside Out 2. I don't know if you've seen Inside Out 2. Also, the first movie also goes well with this. I know you've seen that movie, but
Yes.
I just kept thinking about
Yes.
Inside Out 2. So,
Absolutely. Yes. Definitely Inside Out. I haven't seen Inside Out 2, but I would dare to say Inside Out 1 and 2 are really great ones. Um, so a really great movie. I know we talked about it briefly, but Harry Potter. I'm not giving any spoiler alerts, but what I will say is there is a character who is an adult and they are in a trusted authority figure position. And because of a extreme hurt they experienced when they were a teenager, they are now very mean to that person's child. So when they were a teenager, there was somebody that was really mean to them. That mean person, that bully, you could say, had a child, and now them, the adult version, is now mean to that person's child. That is an example of inner child to healing needing to happen because instead of them working through the hurt and the trauma of that situation, what they're doing is they're unfairly projecting and expressing their anger onto the child who is like, I did nothing. I'm just a child. Like, what do you want from me? So Harry Potter, and that's just one. There's a zillion in them. I'm just trying to not do spoiler alerts. Another one is the TV show The Office. This is not a spoiler alert. There is a character on there named Michael Scott, and he is a manager. Michael Scott has an inner child hissy fit multiple times in every episode. And so he is a really great example of somebody who's in need of therapy and care. And then later on, I forgot what season it is, but in a later season, something happens and those inner child hissy fits actually come to an end somewhat. Not a complete end, but somewhat. It calms down a little bit. When he got some type of healing, which I think was really, really great. So those are two characters that I think exemplify what it means when we don't do some type of inner child healing. I'm trying to think. There's another TV show. Am I aging myself with? I might be aging myself with this one. It's fine, y'all. I'm a happy 33-year-old woman. There's a TV show called The Nanny, and in this TV show, it's a woman who has a very nasally voice who's in New York City, and she becomes a nanny for this very rich, affluent, family, basically. And she has a lot of inner child healing to do, which she does as the series goes on, because she holds on to a lot of the harsh language that her parents use, which is like, you are not valued until you get married. So that resulted in her dating anybody and having very low standards because she felt that her self-worth was tied to marriage because that's what she grew up with, right? I think she was self-conscious about her feet because somebody made fun of her feet. And so there's a lot of things that she would do to cover up her feet in that way. And so as the series goes on, we see her developing her sense of self. She actually had a therapist, and the therapist was like, you need to develop your sense of self. And she was like, oh my gosh, I do. And realizing that her personality was tied so much to a lot of messages that she heard when she was younger. And that's what she used to make her life decisions around eating, around dating, around friendships, around like standards of living, around her outfits. Actually, all of that was tied into her belief about herself. And as she went about healing, all of those things changed in some way. So I would say those are ones where you're able to see how something has happened in their past as a childhood and how it shows up as an adult. And some of them, they got the healing, and some of them, it's the movies or TV, so they really didn't.
Are there like any other forms of media portrayal, like music or a book or I don't know,
Yes,
inner child?
yes, music for sure. Music is very special. It's a special art form because what it does is it brings words to experiences that we have as humans, and we no longer think we're alone anymore because somebody has been singing about our experiences. So they're aging myself again. When I was a teenager, there was a genre of music called emo. Do you know what emo is?
I know what the general term of emo is. I not exactly the music. Is it the same? Is it, do they tie in together or
Probably. I don't know what the 2024 definition of emo is, but the music genre is basically songs that were like putting your heart out. And it was like, I really like this girl and she doesn't like me back. Or my parents don't want anything good for me, and so I'm going to rebel and scream. Or I just want to be loved by this, parental figure, and it's not happening, and so I'm so angry. It's very like emotionally deep music, and they just lay it out on there. That is a good example of inner child healing. One, because they're literally expressing themselves. So they're verbally processing it and getting it out, which is actually very healthy to do. And two, it's a good example to be like, oh, like this is inner child that's coming out, right? These are grown people that we're singing, and they're singing about how they want their dad to love them. That's an inner child experience. That's a little, I forgot what the band was, but that's like little band expressing how badly they want the love from their parent. Um, a book. I'm pretty sure there are books. For some reason, none of them are really coming to my mind right now.
oh, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that. There are like a million, there's just a million things out there, especially in media that
Yeah.
portray the inner child. So
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
those are really good examples already.
Mm.
So
Good. I'm
yeah.
glad.
Then it probably ties into this this question already, but what are some creative ways to allow our inner child to be heard? For example, I am a writer, so I tend to express my inner child through like my screenwriting. It's funny too when you mentioned the music as well, because you know I'm kind of thinking about it, but I might like write lyrics. I don't know if it'd be a poem or like song lyrics. I don't know what I'm gonna do because I have no idea how to like produce music.
Mm.
I just like to write the words and lyrics, so it might be more of a poem. I don't know. I might
Yeah.
make it into a song, but I've been also thinking about doing that. I feel like just expressing like our emotions through painting and things like that as well, which
Mm.
I haven't really tried it yet, but I had like an idea or something in my head that I want to try in regards to that. So I know I already kind of gave some examples, but what are some ways that you know of that can allow our inner child to be heard?
Yeah, I love that question. So you mentioned some really, really good ones. Other creative endeavors are things like drawing. Coloring is a big one because coloring is something we usually associate with children. And we're finding now they're called adult coloring books or meditative coloring books where there might be more that's not a word, more like complex things that you color in that is more appropriate for an adult. So coloring is a big one. I do love the idea of story writing because story writing gives you the opportunity to create an ending to the story.
Mhm.
And your inner child was not able to have the ending to the story that it wanted to have. And
Mhm.
so that's really powerful. Songwriting is also really powerful because you're putting, again, you're getting everything out. And it's actually very powerful. Like the whole science behind like verbal processing and expressing yourself is that when you have those emotions, they need to be expressed. They need to get out so that the tension is not staying in your body. And so doing it is very helpful. Journaling, I don't know if we consider that creative. I consider that creative, especially there's different types of journaling. So journaling is also very helpful. There's actually this one technique, it's kind of under the journaling idea. So inner child version of you writes a letter to adult version of you. And so let's say, for example, my name is Rachel. My dominant hand for writing is my right hand. So I would take my left hand and I would write a letter as inner child Rachel to adult Rachel using my left hand. One, you're exercising another part of your brain, which is healthy to do. And when you do that, you're likely to unlock different memories or things that you may have repressed. And two, you're more likely to actually write like a child, right? Unless you're somebody who can write with both hands, which that's really amazing for you. I love that. My handwriting is horrible with my left hand and it mimics a child. And so it helps me to say, what is something inner child Rachel would like to say to adult Rachel? And writing it in that way, literally, like, I don't say literally, it can take me back to the mentality of child Rachel because I'm seeing how sloppy my handwriting is and because I'm activating a different side of my brain. And then what I do after that is adult Rachel with my right hand, because that's my dominant writing hand, responds to that letter. So it'll be like, how is little Rachel feeling today? And then she writes that down, and then adult Rachel responds to that. I'm so sorry you feel sad. I will take care of you. Your tears are safe here. You can cry, right? Stuff like that. That's a powerful creative technique. Another one is painting. Painting is really good. I would say that like the traditional creative things that we think of. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of those.
Mm-hmm. That idea of writing the letter with your non-dominant hand, that is really cool.
Mm,
I honestly am gonna probably try that. I don't know how far I'll get because my right hand, because I am left-handed, so my right
mm.
hand is gonna probably be like probably after 3 words, nah, but try that and see how it goes because that's really
Mhm.
cool. I never really, I just never like, I mean, that's never heard of that. So that's a really cool idea to do.
Yeah.
So I really like that. So
Yeah.
that is great. Those are just like great answers to a lot of like questions I had about inner child and everything like that. Are there like any projects or announcements you are working on that you like to share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Mariah mentioned, I am a life coach. I work with Christian women of color specifically. And something that I have going on that I'm super excited about is I have a group membership program called the Journal Club. And so, right now, what we're doing is we meet twice a month and we journal together. And I also send all of the members weekly journaling kits. So, in their emails, they get reflection questions, journal prompts, prayers and affirmations, some inspo music, and then we journal together every other week. And so that's something new and exciting that I have going on. Yeah. That's the newest thing that's happening right now.
Okay, cool. That's really cool. Awesome. And then,
Yeah.
like, where can we find you at?
Yeah. And so if there's anything I can do to support y'all, please let me know. You can find me on Instagram at Real with Rachel Ann. You can also find me on Facebook at Rachel Ann Coaching. You can also find me online at rachelancoaching.com. And as a thank you for tuning in and for being here, I have a little gift, a free gift that I'd like to give y'all. I'll send Mariah the link for it, but it is a guide that has tips about journaling. So I'm very, very big on journaling. That's one of the techniques that I talk about the most with my clients. And I also have my group membership program. So it's a journaling guide. So like tips and tricks, how to journal in a way that's helpful and healthy for you. And then there's also 7 journal prompts as well. So yeah, that's like a special little freebie. Thank you. I'm so happy that you were here and you hopefully enjoyed that. And that's a special gift for you all. And if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram. Like I said, Real with Rachel Ann. You also can email me hello@rachelancoaching.com.
Okay, awesome. Yay, thank you. Thank you so much again for just like coming up on here and telling us all about inner child and how we can express that through our imagination and creativity. Again, inner child is
Yeah.
just not talked about. It's very underrated. So I'm so glad you came on here and talked about inner child.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me, Mariah. I love what you're doing. It is very much needed. And I am really, really excited for you. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be on the podcast.
Thank you.
Just want to say how awesome and amazing Rachel is. If you enjoyed that episode, you should definitely check her out. She is definitely a fun and chill person to talk to and just keeps it real. She knows so much, and you can literally tell by the topic for today's episode that she knows so much. So, you should check out her page and her free journaling kit. Both are in the episode description below.
Hey, if you listened to this entire episode, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to my podcast. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. And if you like what you heard, or you have your feedback or thoughts, please just leave them in the comments and ratings. I would appreciate it. Your feedback means everything to me. And if you want to keep up with more of what's going on with this podcast and know more about the life of Mariah, then follow me on the gram. That is at everything story mental health. But it's also in the description because I know that's a pretty long title. So again, thank you so much and have a wonderful week.